It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We have a packed program for you, so please hit the share button and let's get educated together. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. This week, MyPillow is offering their doggy beds for just $20 to make Fido and Rex happy little sleepers. That's a 50% savings when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Go ahead and, if your dog happens to be named Duke, all the better. DRDUKE. Help dogs sleep happily and help this show continue. Today, we start in California, of course, after an Oakland school makes it their mission to deceive parents by creating a transition closet to help gender-confused kids lie to their parents. Now, I had not heard of this myself. Apparently, this is something that's been going on at universities for quite a while. All the bad ideas that are afflicting public school right now, ultimately you trace them back to the universities. And at some universities, evidently, they've had something called a transition closet. They literally build out of wood a closet into which a person can go and ritualistically strip off the clothes of oppression of their old gender and to dress themselves in their new identity as a way. And then you see the symbolism, right? Then you literally come out of the child as something new. Now, this is beginning to happen in public schools. Fremont School in Oakland, California is the first I've heard of to use one of those, although I have been told by good authority that they're already in a number of other public schools. And what happens here is the difference. These kids show up the way their mothers and fathers dress them. They enter the child closet, the transition closet, then they change their gender identity in their clothing, and the parents are never told. It only happens at school. And then when the kids leave for the afternoon, they're redressed in the clothes their parents sent them in. And if this works the way it's supposed to, Mom, you will never know it's taking place.
In a Facebook statement, the Transition Closet actually wrote, "We are extremely excited to begin our journey in working with Fremont High School of Oakland, California, ding, 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 alongside our favorite teacher of TikTok." Well, hey, if you have a favorite teacher of TikTok, then you need to get off TikTok. And that person, of course, is at Just a Queer Teacher. And you can see all of the rainbows and flags and all of that. But they also added the near future holds transition closets and services throughout the school district for students of the trans, non-binary, intersex, and additional LGBTQIA+ community members. We are currently in need of clothing donations to help kickstart the first school-based transition closet. If you are in or near the Oakland, California area and are able to donate clothing, please reach out to, I would say not do so, but they say they want you to. Now, we obviously know that, you want to go to school, you want to be comfortable in what you wear, but some schools have, dress codes. Actually, all schools have some sort of a dress code, but now it doesn't even matter because your teacher potentially in your kid's class could just have a little closet where they can go and, be a superhero.
The goal of the transition closet is for our students to be able to wear the clothes that their parents approve of, come to school, and then swap out into the clothes that fit who they truly are. And I use the idea that this is like Superman changing in a phone booth. But that idea actually goes a lot further than that, because Superman isn't Clark Kent. Clark Kent is actually the disguise. And when Clark Kent goes into the phone booth, he transforms into Superman, who's really just who he truly is, Kal-El. And so this gives our trans students the opportunity to be the superheroes that we know they are.
So those kids who transition in the closet, they're superheroes now. You thought that watching all those ridiculous Superman movies and reading all those comic books as a kid, you thought they wouldn't really impact the culture. Well, there you have it. And this clown show teacher, we've had him on the show before. He actually wears 6-inch stiletto heels when he teaches, so where he ends up standing about 6'6", because he wants to provide for his kids an exclusively gay and transgendered space. In other words, if you're only going to be made comfortable in this space if you're transgender or gay, that itself is problematic. But here you heard what he had to say. We welcomed them to the school in the clothes their parents felt they should wear, and we transitioned them into clothes they're comfortable in. So I have a question, theoretical question. What if I'm not transgender and just want to wear pajamas in the classroom? Do I get to enter the transition closet and not change my gender, but change my clothes? I don't see how you can tell just trans kids that they can change into anything they want. By definition, doesn't this mean that whatever the kid wants to wear in class, if you got a young girl who wants to wear a two-piece bikini, why can't she do that if that is an expression of her sexuality?
And this is exactly what my point was going to. How can you tell any student, no, you can't go into the closet to then come out of the closet wearing something else? This is going to end so poorly. And it's interesting to see what's going to happen. You know, we talk about how, bullying needs to stop. This is a good case of how bullying is going to just be exacerbated by this, because there's going to be a kid who's going to go in there and look for the best swag, if you will, and put that on, and then someone else is going to have wanted to get that swag, and now they're not, and then it's fighting, and then everything's just going to be horrible for everybody. Well, but they don't care about the education, so they can spend the time all day arguing over who gets to wear what and when and all that.
What if you're in the African American community where, $280,000 pairs of Nikes is really the hip thing? Are you going to have to equip? So you're giving all these clothing. You're soliciting donations, right? Boys transitioning into girls' clothing and vice versa. What if you're a white kid who wants to white girl who wants to transform herself into an ethnic male? I mean, not having $250 tennis shoes, is that going to work? What if you're somebody who wants to dress in a tuxedo and tails? Do you have to honor that request? And by not honoring it, and notice the suggestion he made, our trans kids, the kids who enter the closet and make the change, there are superheroes already. All you have to do to be a superhero in a public school is to change your clothing as you change your identity. And I want to remind you, Mom, they believe that. Changing your actual identity is as simply as putting on another pair of pants.
And I don't know my comic book, sorry, not sorry, but isn't technically Superman / Clark Kent an alien?
He is an alien, yep.
So
what does his...
Ponder on that one for a moment. But anyway, I want to just address the fact that this whole transition closet isn't unique to now this school in Oakland. There was a report of it way back in November at a Fayetteville church in Arkansas, where according to the article written about it, transgender, non-binary, lesbian, and gay youth in Arkansas, that's right, I call it Arkansas, and across the county, lacking access to proper gender-confirming apparel and undergarments, now have access to the transition closet. Located securely inside Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Fayetteville, the free service is operated by Amari Roosh, who provides encouraging guidance to all who enter.
And it's not just that the church did it. This seems to be the first place it happened. This ridiculous closet idea originated in a theoretically Christian Lutheran church. I mean, that's staggering. And how about this? It's not just clothing. According to the report, the transition closet also has an online repository of videos teaching transitioning girls how to bind their breasts so they will look more masculine and more. And if you're going to do that, you're going to help female girls bind their breasts so they look like men, aren't you going to have to find a way to have those same girls fill their pants out with something that makes them seem male? They actually have those kinds of devices for trans kids now, right? Which account to making it seem like they have a penis. Where does this start, is Katie pointing, and where does it end? Really is if you didn't have enough reasons to get the hell out of public school, what in the world are you waiting for?
Are you a fan of the show? Consider joining the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation of $99 a year keeps us going. Simply visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us to pledge your support and receive our signature tumbler as a token of our appreciation. We've got much more to come. Stay with us.
If you were with us a few weeks ago, first off, thank you. But also, you may remember a story we did on James Tubbs. He's a 26-year-old male who 8 years ago molested a 10-year-old girl in a Denny's women's bathroom. And now James goes by the name of Hannah. And last month he actually pled guilty to molestation, which was found out only because of DNA that they had gotten from James in 2019 because he committed other crimes at the time. So then we were able to go back to find out what happened 8 years ago. And at the time when he committed these heinous crimes, he was just a few weeks shy of turning 18, and that's very relevant to this story because this happened in LA County, and District Attorney George Gascon's hard and fast rule against trying juveniles adults. Because of that, Tubbs then was assigned just 2 years in a juvenile detention facility, and if he serves good time, he could be out in 6 months. Huzzah for him. And he doesn't have to register as a sex offender. So we reported on all this a little while back. Well, now there's new information coming out in terms of what Tubbs has been saying, basically gloating about the leniency of the punishment. And Fox News and some other outlets actually got a hold of what those phone calls said. Let's just take a look at what he said.
I've obtained some of Tubbs' phone calls from law enforcement sources from when she was in custody in LA County here in November. This was before her sentencing. In a phone call with her dad, she just gloats that she's not going to serve any prison time and that she won't have to register as a sex offender. Take a listen.
Don't worry about it. It's a strike, but they're going to plead. I'm going to plead out to it. I'm going to plead guilty. They're going to stick me on probation, and it's going to be dropped. It's going to be done. I won't have to register. I won't have to nothing.
For an offender, you don't have to register?
I won't have to do none of that.
So what are they going to do to you then?
Nothing.
Now, in those calls, Tubbs also went on to make some extremely crude, disparaging remarks about her 10-year-old victim, openly discussing her sexual attraction for her and laughing about it. So crude, we've decided not to air that audio. She also went on to say she would flee the country if she got in trouble again. So I reached out to DA George Gascon's office about these phone calls last week. His team told me they didn't even know about the calls until I contacted them, and Gascon has now released a statement which says in part, quote, "After Tubbs' sentencing in our case, I became aware of extremely troubling statements she made about her case, the resolution of it, and the young girl that she harmed. If we knew about her disregard for the harm she caused, we would have handled this case differently."
First thing, Fox News, stop calling him her. He is making no effort to look like a woman. He is not dressing different. He's not altering his voice. He's certainly not undergoing any hormone shots. He's just labeled himself female. Stop calling him a woman, number one. Number two, did you just see what the Soros-sponsored radical left-wing DA Gascon just said? Big supported by huge money from Soros has come to this guy to completely undermine law enforcement in this country. Gascon actually said that if we'd have known his attitude when we put him on trial for rape, we would have given him a harsher sentence. Seriously. It's not about crime anymore. It's not about what you do. It's your attitude. So because he didn't express any attitude, he got a slap on the wrist. Oh, and by the way, not only, as Katie said, will he have an easier sentence, he's not going to have to register as a sex offender, even though he is a multiple sex offender. He will be able to spend his prison time, what little he's going to get, with female prisoners.
And there was actually more calls that were uncovered. And one of them, actually, whoever he was talking to, he told that caller to address him as female because he didn't actually begin to identify as female until
he got arrested.
He was taken into custody. He's thinking to himself in cuffs like, oh, maybe I should just identify as a female and they'll let me go. And it seems to have worked in this case. Now, according to prosecutors, again, the prosecutors are the ones who said he didn't even identify female until after. And so on this one phone call, he was actually heard saying, so now they're going to put me with other trannies that have seen their cases like mine, or with one tranny like me that has a case like mine. So when you come to court, we don't know who you is, maybe his dad, because that's who he was talking to in the other one, make sure you address me as her. Oh, great. Meanwhile, we do have the victim, his victim, who 8 years ago, so she's about 18 now, maybe 17, 18, 19 here. She said that Tubbs' sentencing was unfair and insulting. She said the things he did to me and and made me do that day was beyond horrible for a 10-year-old girl to have to go through. I want him tried as an adult for the crimes he committed against me. But again, because this was LA County, and he was 2 weeks away from being 18, still gets to be tried as a juvenile.
And note the parallelism. A biological male swims against biological females and dominates them. And the girls are supposed to shut up and take it. Notice how quickly that aligns with young girl raped by man who pretends to be a woman and gets off serious punishment despite what the young rape victim has to say. That's America 2021. It seems like if you want the best opportunity to avoid any kind of prison time for being a rapist, just call yourself transgender.
Today's show is sponsored by Clean Start Hand Sanitizer. For an odor-free foam hand sanitizer that lasts 2 hours and provides 19 refills, visit freedomproject.com/clean. That's KLEEN to order yours today.
Well, this next story is basically a man who's white, British, wants to be Korean, spent tons of money on it, and basically is going about his business to be all things Korean.
Transracial, that's the title of the story. Transracial individual spends $250,000 to look Korean. He touts penis reduction plan. Actually, he's done his homework, and according to this fella, the average size of a Korean penis is 3.5 inches, and so he's going to have his reduced. We've seen the evolution of transgenderism. Think about the first story we talked about today and then the second story. In the second story, we had a situation where a transgender man raped little girls and then more or less got away with it by at the last minute identifying as a transgender. And my question is, and Katie's asked this question before too, where does this stop? Where does it stop from an educational standpoint of what you're allowed to be and when you are allowed to become it? Take a listen to how this young man's transition from English to Korean.
You know, I've had like 18 plastic surgeries now, and I've just had a facelift, a brow lift, a temple lift, an eye surgery, a canthoplasty, and my teeth done as well. These are just part of my transition. I know a lot of people don't understand me, but I do identify as Korean, and I do look Korean now. I do feel Korean. I don't identify as British, so please don't refer to me, any media or anyone online, as British, because I identify as Korean. That's just my culture. That's my home country. That's exactly how I look now.
I mean, we showed you a video a couple weeks ago where a substitute teacher was fired because she refused to meow at a young child who thought that they were a cat. And so the male student sat there meowing during class, and she refused to meow back. She ended up getting fired for not being able to identify with all the children in the school. And what about cultural appropriation? What about the issues of this? I mean, notice how even the golden calf of race is being undermined by this. The idea that some white boy from London can just become racial, become Korean just by a couple of surgeries. I would think that the race baiters in this country better start looking over their shoulder. It's not just girls who are getting sold down the road. Even the people who believe in racial superiority or the racial purity of certain kinds of people, they're being sold down they're being sent down the river as well. If race itself is that easy to change, it's going to be a very different world in about 5 more years. Here is a quote from Ollie London. Quote, "I don't want people to get offended by this, but in Korea, the average penis is like 3.5 inches. And I get trolled all the time. People say, oh, you can't be Korean. You're not 100%. 100%. He's 0% Korean. And I just want to be 100% Korean. I would even have a penis reduction, so I'm like the Korean average. That's how far I'm willing to go." So, Ollie, logic. If you're willing to go so far to become partly Korean, you're not Korean, right? Or is logic one of those other things that we can just transition away from? It's time now for some real education. This week we're showcasing our Presidential Minute series. These short videos are designed to educate adults and children alike on our nation's leaders in 90 seconds or less. Today we're going to look at two of our nation's greatest and earliest presidents, George Washington and the hero of Katie Petrick, John Adams. Enjoy.
Let me tell you a little story about a man named George Washington. Born in Virginia on February 22, 1732, he would become the only president to receive every electoral vote. A very tall man, Washington began his military career at 20 years old, joining up with the Virginia militia. At 26, he married Martha Custis and helped raise her 2 children. By his 40s, George was earning his stripes, commanding troops of the Continental Army to victory in the Revolutionary War. In 1789, he was chosen as America's first president. During that time, he helped create the first presidential cabinet system and national bank. Today, Washington's image can be seen on Mount Rushmore, the dollar bill, and quarter. He has his own monument, the tallest in D.C. America's national capital is named after him, as well as a state, the only one to be named after an American president. On December 14, 1799, while checking his farms in the freezing rain, George Washington developed pneumonia and died at the age of 67. And there you go, a little story about a man named George. Let me tell you a little story about a man named John Adams. Born in Massachusetts on October 30th, 1735, he would become one of the nation's first constitutional lawyers. Considered one of the most influential founding fathers, his first stint in politics was as a delegate in the Continental Congress during the Revolutionary War. At 28, he married Abigail Smith and together raised 6 children, including John Quincy, who would become the nation's 6th president. Through his years, he helped draft the Declaration of Independence and wrote the Massachusetts State Constitution. John was the first to nominate George Washington as Commander-in-Chief during the Revolutionary War and John Marshall as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. In 1789, he ran alongside George Washington, becoming America's first vice president. 8 years later, he was elected as the nation's 2nd president. In 1800, he lost his re-election to Thomas Jefferson and became one of 4 presidents in history not to attend his successor's inauguration. John Adams died on July 4, 1826, at the age of 90. Ironically, that day, Thomas Jefferson also passed, all while America celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And there you go, a little story about a man named John.
I want to take a moment to thank our Patriot Club members, like the Patriots of George Washington and John Adams, but our Patriot Club members for making all of these videos possible. Now, their financial support is the reason. They are the reason, the resources that we are able to bring these stories to life for all of you to enjoy. And if you are not a member yet, well, get on the bandwagon and join the Patriot Club with a $99 gift to support our educational videos, like, as you just saw, Presidential Minute. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get started. It just takes about 2 seconds to do. Now, before we go, we'd like to show some love to our Patriot Club members, and today we're giving our special shout out to Todd from Wake Forest, North Carolina. Todd, thank you for supporting us.
And Todd from the land of the Demon Deacons. That wraps up the show for this day. It's Freedom Project. I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. And until next time, stay educated, please.